Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. Getting into obviously a very big week of earnings. We have had some of like the leading tech names report this past week, but we will get kind of like the rest of them this next week. Also, a lot of like tech names, a lot of very like beaten down names reporting too. So a lot of interesting companies reporting over the next few days. Plus, volatility is still real high, so there's definitely be a lot going on. Before the open on Monday, nothing of interest really. After the close on Monday, two semis. So Cirrus, which is priced in about 9 points, those are monthly options. And then the other one is NXPI, which is priced in about 14 and a half. Um, I will say that neither are really stocks I typically trade much, and semis are still kind of searching for some life. So I may wait and see how these reports look because there are definitely bigger names in Semiland reporting next week that seem like could be more of a focus for me. Okay, before the open on Tuesday, so Exxon, which is priced in about 325. Chevron had a mixed print this morning that took some of the wind out of the sails of Exxon. Energy too. I've definitely missed the boat. A lot of energy move, and I don't think I'm gonna be playing earnings on this. But maybe if it dips, I'll take a look at a swing trade. But it's not. It's definitely not something that's high on my list of names for next week. UPS, so about 12 and a half points what's priced in. Had a solid report in October, so that's when it popped up here. It's pulled back like a lot of other names. FedEx had a solid report last month too, so maybe this is like a snapback bull trade candidate if they can deliver. Lots of industrials are off their high, so UPS isn't that much different in that regard. But if they can turn in a solid quarter, maybe it could recover ground quickly. After the close on Tuesday, so now we get some of the big names. Google is pricing in about 187 to 188, somewhere around there. It's the first of the tech titans next week. Very consistent recently, strong quarters, and this is the first major correction in months. Right, so I scroll out, you can see. I mean, really, the first major correction in over a year at least. Um, I mean, I think many are expecting this report to be solid. Apple had a pretty good report this week. It wasn't up a ton. On Google is maybe the upside on Google is just a little bit more marginal, um, or modest. Even if it is good, it's just a different environment right now, and expectations for movement kind of need to be in line with the action. And for the most part, there aren't a ton of huge winners on the upside, right? That's one of the things you're noticing this quarter is that there's some stocks that get paid, but it's more rare to see some really huge winners on the upside in this tape. All right, so before the open, also on Tuesday, AMD, another big tech name, priced in about 10 points. It's had a strong run into earnings the past two quarters, but right now it's just pretty much straight down. They've had strong beat and raises. So, I mean, I guess it wouldn't surprise me to see some people get interested on this, maybe Monday or Tuesday. But, I mean, sentiment's really going to need to change to see material upside, even if the numbers are good, because, I mean, tech isn't acting great, semis aren't acting great, and this is pretty much just straight down going into earnings. PayPal, another name going straight down into earnings, priced in about 14 points. Everyone keeps buying, and it seems like the stock just keeps going lower. Very beaten up, but the past two quarters they weren't very good, so it's kind of hard to be real positive on this going into the report. The option pricing doesn't look crazy high though, so it might actually leave some room for a volatility strategy. MSTR. So it's priced in about 47 points. I'm mostly just curious about this one. I don't think I'm going to play it. Their average. So MicroStrategy's average on Bitcoin, I think, is in like the low 30s. It's getting close to that. So stock has been clobbered and historically pretty volatile, just not necessarily on earnings. So this might be more of like a post-earnings watch for me, right? For like a trade, especially if the option pricing comes down after the report. Starbucks. So priced in about five points or so. It's been hit hard for a couple reasons in January, and it's going to be reporting earnings at its worst level since 2020. Actually, um, it does tend to respond a little bit weaker to earnings, but maybe the drop into the reports kind of altered the setup this quarter. Maybe it favors the bull side a little bit, especially if it's not as bad as feared necessarily. Option pricing seems okay. Um, I don't have a great feel for this pattern. It seems kind of like a toss-up setup, but I mean, after the drop, maybe there is a little bit more of a skew to the bull side, but it's something that probably is going to need sentiment to change across the market too. For the open on Wednesday, it's really only like one name, and it's Abbey, and I'm not even sure earnings are the big news I'd be looking for. It's priced about 5.5 points. And actually, there's a lot of pharma bios reported next week. This one's been on my radar though because they've been due to report cystic fibrosis data. So it's kind of hard to say whether it's going to come out next week or not. But if it did, it definitely could impact the stock, and it could also impact Vertex, VRTX, quite a bit as well. So that's where my interest would be is if the data comes out. If there's no data, then I'm not sure it's going to be a huge mover because it's already had a pretty big run into earnings. All right, after the close on Wednesday, some more tech names. So Facebook, priced in about 20 points. I think this is one of the better setups in mega cap land. It's lagged others for a while, sitting right around the key 300 level, right? You can see that's been a big price point on it. Last quarter wasn't great, so there's definitely a bunch of question marks going into this report. To me, it seems like there's room either way. It seems like there's, if it's good, there's room higher. If it's bad, there's room lower. So it kind of sets up well for a volatility strategy, especially if I can get the risk down a bit on either side. ALGN, so about 50 points roughly is what's priced in here. This bid-ask spreads are a little bit wider. It's had some big moves in the past on earnings, and I mean that's definitely why the options are pricing about 50 points. It has been hit very hard in January though, um, and this is the deepest correction it's had in over a year. So it could be a snapback candidate if they can deliver, but I mean at 50 points, I mean it's really going to have a pretty significant move. And again, you just haven't seen that many stocks have huge moves on the upside this quarter. Um, but I mean, maybe something to look at. Qualcomm, so big semi report, priced in about 14 points. It's crushed it 2 quarters in a row. Was a leader just up until the past 2 weeks, and it actually hasn't broken gap support either. So that separates it from some other semis. Um, I mean, I guess it wouldn't surprise me to see this catch a bit ahead of earnings just based off how strong the last 2 quarters were. And if the market stabilizes or the semi stabilize, it seems like it's in a good spot to maybe like rebound. So I'm gonna have to see where it is on Wednesday just to determine whether there's a trade here or not. Also, Spotify, about 19 points is what's priced in. Last quarter was actually the first in a few where spot closed green. But now the stock is materially lower from that. It's definitely fallen off my radar a bit, um, but it actually is a little bit more of an interesting technical setup this time around because 200 was a big level, which you can see it broke underneath. So, um, I mean, I feel like there could potentially be room either direction. 19 points isn't cheap, but I mean, maybe if I can get risk down, this is something I look at for volatility strategy. For the open on Thursday, just more pharma bios. So Biogen, which is priced in at about 12, Merck, which is priced in at about 3, and then Lilly is priced in at about 12. Um, I some of these I've looked at for data or different events over the last couple months. I just haven't focused much on them for earnings, and I think honestly like that's probably going to be how I approach it. They're going to be more like swing ideas or data dependent ideas versus like earnings, just because I haven't seen these pharma names or bios really get paid or see some big moves. So I think I'm going to focus more on like catalysts, like the data events. Also, I mean Honeywell and ITW, some some more industrial reports, but they're not great setups. So I'll wait and see how those numbers look before doing anything with them. And then also Thursday before the open, Penn. So this one was crushed. The price in about 525. It was crushed on earnings last quarter. That was this bar here, and it's pretty much just been in a tailspin since then. It looks like it has room either direction. Um, I I I think option pricing is a little bit higher, but I mean, if it moves anywhere near what it did last quarter, I mean, that would be quite a bit more than what's priced in this quarter. I haven't traded it much, but also, I mean, the last couple of quarters when it's reported, so that was here and then here, a majority of the move has happened actually during the trading day. So I might not need to take risk into the actual print because it seems like when it does move, it tends to do it during the session. So there might be some opportunity for like a fast day trade on that one. After the close on Thursday, so Amazon, another biggie, about 175 points was priced in. A lot of question marks on Amazon going to earnings. Past two quarters weren't great. Stock is broken down out of a huge monthly consolidation. Um, I mean, e-commerce stocks have been getting hit hard. Many companies are worrying about supply chain issues. Apple did maneuver pretty well though in the holiday quarter, and that only kind of like briefly helped Amazon today. Um, this is one where it's very hard to gauge. I'm really having a hard time figuring out this setup. Both sentiment wise, stock reaction wise, um, and I mean, really nothing would surprise me. I mean, it could be a huge mover. It could be non-event. I just have no read on it. And if I did anything, it would probably be with options that were further out of the money, very, very speculative, just in case there's like a really crazy move either way, because I just don't have a great feel for this setup, even though I do think there is potential for it to move. It's just, there's just way too many question marks with it. Um, so Activision also on Thursday after the close, it's getting bought out though, so not much interest at this point. But EA reports earlier in the week, which I didn't mention, but EA, Activision, Take-Two doesn't report next week, so maybe maybe that's a mover. But actually, Take-Two did a deal for Zynga recently, so there's been a lot of headlines in the gaming space. So we'll see how that week plays out for them.
Test radio, test
Ford
radio. Hello, hello.
So Ford also is Thursday after the close. It's a name we've just been a fantastic swing trade for a while. Momentum's definitely cool. They're pricing about $1.70 for earnings. Um, Earnings last quarter really started the run. I mean, that's when the slope really started to steepen. So maybe if they can deliver, it reignites some momentum. I am personally less interested in earnings because it's more of like a focus for a swing trade, like weeks, months, time frame for me, depending on whether it can continue to hold up here around 19 or 20. Um, so I may not do a whole lot with like short-term contracts. Wait to see how the report goes, and then look at something like I said, like weeks out, maybe even like months out, depending on whether the numbers are good, commentary is good, and stock reacts well. Okay, so Pinterest is pricing in. So Pinterest, let's see, Pinterest pricing about 425, and then Snapchat's pricing in about 550. So you can see these charts are very similar. Facebook's going to set the tone for this group, um, but these names can be pretty volatile on their own. Most of the charts look similar, so I don't know if either is going to really significantly outperform the other. I mean, it seems like they're both kind of trading tick for tick with one another. Um, I guess what's interesting too is that Twitter doesn't report next week, so you have Facebook, Snap, and Pinterest all report next week. Twitter doesn't, so that could be a decent sympathy play. Um, just because there's gonna be a lot of news flow on those social media like ad tech names, and Twitter doesn't report, so that might be a sympathy play. Or you mean depending on what Facebook says, you might get a big move on Snap and Pinterest, and maybe there's an opportunity to go the opposite way if the numbers are materially different than Facebook. So this for me, this is going to be one of the areas that I'm most focused on next week, and we'll just see because I think there's the stocks have been crushed. There's a lot of uncertainty, and these stocks have lately been very 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 volatile in earnings. So this is definitely something I'll be looking at. Unity, so about 13 points was priced in. Was a metaverse play. It's been hit very hard, down over 50% from its high, and it's kind of just in like a steady downward slide. It probably won't be an earnings focus for me, but if they can deliver and break this downtrend, maybe I'll look at it for like a swing entrance, just for like a bounce, because it is very beaten up, and I feel like it could be due for a bounce, but I also don't know if I want to be in it for earnings. All right, lastly, before the open on Friday, some more pharma bios. BMI is priced in about 225. Regeneron is priced in about 44 points. Um, again, I mean, pharma names right now, they're not really a focus for me on earnings. If it has data or some other catalyst, maybe I'll be looking at it. But I just don't really want to be involved with these for earnings. It's maybe after earnings, if the numbers are good and the stocks act okay, maybe swing trades. But earnings wise, I don't think I'm in the mood to lay out the money to take it into these reports. So it'll just be probably like a watch and see on Friday on those names. All right. And that's it. So, I mean, a lot of big names. There's still plenty of other names, other stocks reporting that I didn't even get to. Those were just some of the ones that crossed my radar. But I mean, definitely going to be a packed few days of earnings. Some really big, big reports. Also, some big priced in moves. And I just think it's going to be another wild week of trading. All right. So, if you like this video and you're looking for more information about trading earnings with options, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options to play. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Stay well, and I will talk to you on Monday.